makes these hard is the equal to, or greater than, or equal to or less than. They say, okay, could it be the same, or does it have to not be the same? And they give you little kickers. They'll say there's inflation or there's deflation. That helps, right? That kind of thing. On the first one, they don't say anything. So if it says to the whole, let's do it again. If you had inventory of the whole, that would mean what?
You get like
all of it together, every single inventory. That's it. So then if the market price is above cost, and some the market price is below cost, they would offset, right, each other. So you'd end up with an estimate on the whole for market value that would be a higher number. So you'd be less likely to have a write-down, and if you did have a write-down, it'd be smaller than if you did it item by item. Does that make sense?
yes.
Because item by item, every time market is less than cost, you write it down. If cost is less than market, you leave it at cost, right? So it's got to be that the inventory, if they ask about inventory, would be what? Tend to be more here. Tend to be less here, right? Okay? But could they be the same? Well, yeah, if market's always the lowest, their cost is always the lowest, they'd be exactly the same, wouldn't they? Right? Whether you add them all up or not doesn't make any difference. So it could be or same. And that's the trick, okay? Then the next thing that makes this hard, so that's the answer to the question to begin with. Oh, by the way, and where would it be if you did categories? Categories are somewhere in between, right? Because you're merging some of them together by category, but not all of them, right? So it's somewhere in between these two, right? Then the problem you've got is determine what X means and what Y means. Okay, so on this one, cost or market which is the lower may be applied one to the inventory as a whole, which is, I don't know why they don't just write X next to it. Okay, so as a whole is X, right? I don't know why they use 1 and 2. X made it just hard to read. And then reported inventory, see, 2 categories of inventory items. So 2 is this one, right? So this one is 1, this one is 2. But it's in that direction towards a by item, right?
Right.
So inventory is going to be more or the same for whole than it is for categories, right? Less or the same, right? Got it. Okay. All right. So what do you want to know? You want to know which, and it asks about what? Inventory. If it asks about cost of goods sold, it would be the inverse of this, right? The opposite, right? If inventory is lower, cost of goods sold is more, and vice versa. Okay, good. All right. So how would you answer this? Could they be equal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And then what else is the case? X is this one, would be what? More. More or the same. So which one do you get? D for the first one. And that's the whole thought process. And oh my gosh, what a pain, huh? So let's do number 2 on that. Prices have been rising steadily. Okay, they got inflation. Physical turnover of goods have occurred approximately 4 times in the last year. Now what they're doing here is they're saying costs are going up. So it's going to talk about LIFO versus FIFO or average, right? Well, if costs are going up, what happens? Just in general, if costs are going up, what happens? LIFO versus, the first one they had is LIFO to moving average, which is in between what? LIFO and FIFO? So we can just do it LIFO and FIFO and say, oh, well, that's somewhere in between, right? Make sense? So with LIFO, what would happen to the inventory? Last in, first out. I'm selling the new expensive ones and keeping the old cheaper ones, right? So this would be less. That make sense? This one would have to be, FIFO would have to be more. That make sense? Right? FIFO would give you more inventory because it's got the, LIFO, last in, first out. Keeps the old inventory, yeah. FIFO keeps the new inventory, right? And the new inventory is more expensive. We know that because of inflation. What if it said prices are going down? Flip-flop those two, right? They have the opposite. Then why did they tell you it's turned over 4 times? So there's actually a difference between them, right? It's moving through, okay? Otherwise, you might get the same answer between the two of them. It's not turning very fast, okay? So So the inventory is turning fast, so that gets rid of the same part of this. And what you've got, which one did they make X? LIFO? LIFO is X, right? Okay, LIFO is X, and moving average is Y? Okay, so which one gives you a lower inventory?
LIFO.
LIFO, answer C, right? Can't be equal. Got it? Okay, so that one's C. And that's the thought process. People did horrible at this. Almost unanimously horrible. And they always do. Number 3, the retail inventory method has been used by store for the first year of operations. This one's hilarious. It's hard question, and then they throw this in. Can you ever have markdown cancellations more than your markdowns? Markdown is your price reduction, right? Markdown cancellation is you got rid of that price reduction. Can you ever get rid of more than you did? No, right? So markup cancellations have to be what? Less than markdown, or markdown cancellations have to be less than markdowns, right? But could they be equal if you canceled all of them? Yes. So what answer do you get? E, yeah, equal to or less than. Simple, huh? Did you get that one?
Oh, no, I got the last 2 right, though.
You got harder ones. Okay, anyway. Yeah, so number 3, what? Number 3 is E, and it's really a piece of cake. Okay, I guess you'd have to realize you could eliminate all of them. Okay, good. You got the last 2. Prices have been rising steadily. Got inflation again. At the beginning, the company adopted a new inventory method. The physical quantity ending inventory is the same as the beginning. Compare X. Reported value of the inventory if LIFO is the new method. Reported value if FIFO is the new method. You know what? This question on number 4 is asking exactly the same thing that was asked in number 2. Did you realize that? None of you didn't get 2, right? But yeah, 4 is exactly the same thing as number 2. What's the deal? You're reporting at LIFO.
Yeah.
Right? If there's any inventory turns at all, what do you got?
Wait, what?
And they said the quantity is the same. So LIFO is a new method. There's inflation. So what's the deal? Cost of goods sold would be more, inventory would be less, right?
Yes.
Okay, and FIFO? So we got LIFO over here. We got FIFO over here. Like I said, it's just like that, isn't it? Okay, so this would be more. This would be less. And it's got to be C. Same answer. Same answer, it was the same question, worded differently. These are CJ exam questions too. That's really kind of mean, isn't it, almost? Especially if you thought you had to use all the answers. Prices have been rising steadily in beef. Turnover has occurred 5 times last year. Moving average with weighted average. This is harder. Okay. Moving average. And moving average is X. Is that right? Yeah. Weighted average. It's Y. Okay, now let's think about this. Price is going up. So what's the difference here? When would you use moving and when would you use weighted? Moving is what? 2 different places. Moving average and weighted average. Weighted average, you pretend to buy everything, right? Have your beginning inventory plus all your purchases. And you find out what the average cost of each one was, right? So weighted average would just be the average of everything. That's on what? I wait until I buy everything to compute my cost of goods sold. What is that? Periodic, right? Moving average? Perpetual. Right? Because every time I buy some, I calculate a new average. When I sell some, I sell at that average. So what tends to happen, let's think about this. With periodic, all the costs for the period are included in the average. In cost of goods sold and in the inventory, true? With perpetual, what happens? It tends to go in the direction the prices are going, either up or down, right? So where the cost of goods sold would be what? Under LIFO, I'm sorry, the other thing about it is, moving average and weighted average are between LIFO and FIFO, right? We'd still have LIFO over here, FIFO over here, way on the outside, right? So which one is closer to FIFO and which one's closer to LIFO is really the deal, huh? This is hard. FIFO would tend to give me what? More inventory with inflation, right? Just like in C, okay? Just like in number 2 and in number 4. And LIFO would tend to give me less, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so we know both of those things. Which one is going to be closer to LIFO and which one's going to be closer to FIFO? What happens? Moving average tends to do what? Change more than weighted average, right? So where are we going to be with this? You notice that moving average with those weighted average, what do they get? X is greater than Y. Go in the right direction with that. Moving. So it's B. Physical term has been 5 times. Unit prices in moving average with those at weighted average. Moving average would be less. Uh-oh. Units in ending inventory at moving average. Moving average, you'd always be taking the new ones and adding them to the old ones, and the prices are increasing. Weighted average, you'd wait until the end. Oh, no, wait a minute. Unlike it's LIFO. No, it's average. So as it, no, I said it backwards. As the costs are going up, ignore this part. As the costs are going up, what happens? With weighted average, you get the old ones that were cheaper and the new ones that were higher, right? So this would tend to be higher, more. They're right. Moving average would do what? You'd always be taking the more recent ones, right? Okay. So weighted average, you'd have more cost of goods sold, less inventory. Less inventory. This one would have more inventory. Is that B?
Yes.
Okay, good. More inventory. Less inventory. Yeah, I got it. So it does make sense. Okay, good. Let's try it. Number 6. These were just, can you tell the difference, right? And can you remember how to do them? So the first one here on number 6 says, when you undertook the preparation of the statements for Vancy, the following data were available, and we had all this markups, markdowns. We know we're doing retail methods before we read it. Okay? Retail method, which approximates lower of cost or market. Which one's that? The conventional. What are we going to do? Include what? Markups, and leave out markdowns to do our percentage. And then we'll take the markdowns out later, right? Okay? So, did you get this one right?
No, I messed it up somehow.
Something crazy. All right, so let's do cost. Cost retail. All right. Do I want to include the beginning inventory? Yes. It's not LIFO, right? Okay. So this is conventional or lower of cost or markdowns. So what you do is you start with the beginning inventory, and that beginning inventory was 70,800, right? And retail is 1985. We could do a cost of retail percentage if we want, right? We don't have to on this method, but we could, right? I mean, just divide it in. And then what happens? There's purchases, but they also have purchase returns, don't they? And allowances. So what would you do? I'd take my purchases less my returns and allowances. If I had freight in, I'd add my freight in, wouldn't I? With me? So let's do net purchases. We'll just do that. What do? You take 219.5 at cost and subtract the return. Whoops, wrong number. Where's the purchase? Yeah, it is. Purchase of 219.5 at cost. You see it there?
Yes.
Less the 4,300 purchase returns and allowances. What do you get? 215.2. And what do you think you were going to sell those for? We had 294,000 sales price, 5,500 sales price. The ones returned. You see them there? See what I did, right?
Wait, what?
See the 294
Yeah.
was the spot at sales price. 5,500 is the return at sales price, right? Difference is 288.5, is it?
Mhm.
All right, so what I started with plus what I bought, and so I just did net purchases, subtract out. And if I had freight, I'd add it in. I wouldn't write them all down one for you. Okay? So now what do I have? I've got what my total purchases for the period, right? Or just total are. The total that I'm going to use my ratio for. I can do my cost of retail ratio on. So 70,800 plus 215.2 is 286,000, I guess. And then 98.5 plus 288.5 is 387,000. Notice that I don't have markups or markdowns. What I need to do, add in only my markups. And you can do that before you do the total, obviously. Okay, how much is that? Oh, by the way, I want my markups net and my markdowns net, right? Net of cancellations. So do I have markups? Yeah, 35,000. Do I have markup cancellations? Yes, 10,000. So what's the difference between the two? I do it right. No, I like it. Markups are 63,000. See it? And markup cancellations are 10. So it's 53,000. Got it? And those are net. You see where that came from? Okay? It's the markups less the markup cancellations. We're only including markups when we do convention. That's the big difference, okay? So now what do I have? I've got 286 and 440. And what I've done by including the markups net of cancellation is I made my percentage smaller, which is going to make my inventory estimate smaller, which is approximately. Got it? So take 286 and divide it by 440. What's that cost? 65%. So we got 65%. So what I'm going to say is my inventory is 65%. My inventory at cost is 65% of my inventory at retail. That's an important percentage, that cost of retail percentage, right? Okay, it's just cost divided by retail, that's all it is. All right. What do I want to subtract from that? Don't forget to do the markdowns. Kind of for obvious reasons, you won't come up with the right ending inventory if you don't take it out, right? So even though you don't have it in doing the ratio, you still take it out, okay? How much was it? Net markdowns. See, I see markdowns of 35?
Yeah, but we know what the cancellation.
Of how much? 20. What's the difference?
15.
And these are marking down, so what do? Add or subtract those? Down and subtract. How is that? Right? Simple, huh? Okay, but then what else is there going to be? Sales, huh? And we'll do the sales net, too. Net of sales returns and allowances, things close. So it threw some things at you here, didn't it? We got sales of 345, sales returns and allowances of 10, so what's the net sales? 335. So I'm going to take my sales away, right, and my markdowns away, and what will I have? Ending inventory. Only this is going to be the ending inventory at retail. Got it? So 440 less 15 less 335 is how much? Stay with me. Let yourself think. You've got time. 90? It doesn't matter how much you get done anyway. It matters how much you get right. That's true out in the work world, right? Obviously, you have to get something done, but you will. Be fine. Okay, so 90,000. What I want to know is how much the ending inventory is at cost. 65% of that is the cost. 10.65. Do not take the 335 times the 65% and say that's cost of goods sold and subtract that. You won't get the right number, okay? Got it. Do the inventory. So 90 times 65% is how much?
58,000.
Yeah, that was the answer to your question. But what if I asked you for cost of goods sold? Would you have done it? Yeah, here's available. Right? What's cost of goods sold? It's the cost of all that. 286 less 58.5, isn't it? How much would that have been if I asked for it? There's no big deal if I asked for it.
227,500.
You may think you're not developing very much. I think you are a hell of a lot. Right? Because this stuff is not solid. It is solid to the final, okay?
Okay.
But you're getting it, it's just fuzzy.
Yeah.
Things can't be fuzzy. Imagine you're driving a car and you sort of have an idea versus you know how. You're dangerous, right? Sort of. So same thing. So you can go from having an idea what you're doing to being able to do it with some more work. That's all it is. That's true for everybody at home too. You can get so, what was the term we used to say? Wire. Yeah, yellow wire. Okay, so that one was 58.5. When you go to 7, what do they say here? LIFO. See it? Calculate the estimated inventory based on LIFO. What are we going to do? Exactly the same thing, but what are we going to separate? LIFO? The beginning inventory is a LIFO layer, right? And then we're going to do the new purchases, and then we're going to sell the new purchases before we sell the old stuff. Right? We're going to keep the old stuff. It's LIFO, last in, first out. So here we go. LIFO, retail method. Okay? So we're going to do exactly the same thing. What number are we on? Number 7. All right, we're going to do cost and retail. And the only difference here between LIFO and average, regular cost, right, is that we're going to separate the beginning inventory. So do it. And we'll have a ratio for the beginning inventory. All right, so what do they start with? Cost is 10,440, is it?
Yeah.
I'll give these numbers to you. Retail is 14.5. Cost to retail percentage is 10,440 less divided by 14.5.
Oh.
That's all they did. They didn't give it to us. They didn't have to. They told us the cost of retail. We know what it is.
72%.
Okay, if my ending inventory at retail is less than 14.5, what am I going to do? I'm going to take 14.5 times 72%. That's my inventory, right? If it's exactly 14.5, my cost is 72% of that, which is 10,440. Got it? To the extent I have more than 14.5, I'm going to keep that inventory, right? And I'm going to have a new one at whatever the new cost to retail percentage is. See it? So then what happens? We're going to do exactly the same thing. We got purchases, right? And I'm going to say purchases net, and I'm going to include freight and take away purchase discounts. Got it? Or purchase returns allowances and purchase discounts. What do we have in this problem? We have purchases and we have freight, don't we? We don't have, now we have purchase discounts too, don't we? Yeah. Okay, so take purchases, how much is it a cost? By the way, your purchases at retail aren't going to change because you have freight or discounts, am I right? They would change for returns and allowances like in the last problem because you get the product back, right? But if you have a discount, it doesn't change how much you're selling the product for, does it? If you have freight, it doesn't change how much you're selling the product for, does it? No. Okay. So for retail, it's 42.9. That makes sense? But then what I would do is I would add the purchases. How much is that? At cost. 31,550. Add that to the freight in of 2,000 because that increases it, right? That's 33,550. And then take away the 250, right, of discounts because you saved that, right? So we're 33,550 less 250 is 33,300, is that right? And that's how you do it. If you want, the way the author shows it is they wrote down the purchases and then they added the freight and they subtracted the discounts, who cares? As long as you get the 33,300, right? Now what I want to do, these are all the additions, right? That's the additions this period. So here's last year's layer. This is a LIFO layer. Last year's. That's the old one. This is new purchases, right? So if we have an inventory bigger than 14.5, it's going to be some of those things. Figure out what the cost of retail is. What would you do? 33,300 divided by 42,900. What do you get?
About 42,900.
Yeah.
It's like 70.
Oh, I didn't do the markups and markdowns. I'm sorry. Yes, I noticed what you got there. Where's the markups? We need both markups net and markdowns net. Yeah, come on. So, that's too easy. Okay, and there won't be anything on cost on those, right? Because you're only marking up and down the sales price. Okay, so here we go. Are there markdowns? Markups? There's markups 3,800 and markup cancellations 400. So what do we have for net markups? 3,400. We'd add those because they're out. Net markdowns. That's markdowns less markdown cancellations, right? It's 1,300. You got to take those out. Okay. So what do we have added this period? This is what was added, right? We started with beginning inventory, then we added this. Cost 33,300. Would you agree with that? And the retail is 42,900 plus 3,400 less 13. What is that? 45,000. Is that better? Or 2,100. Okay. 45. Now calculate cost of retail.
74%.
Yeah. Looks like our gross profit percentage went down from 28 to 26, didn't it? And our costs are going up and not recovering. Okay, anyway, take away what? All of our sales. Okay? We don't have to worry about markups and markdowns because they're already out now, right?
Yeah.
Okay? All right, so sales are 46.5. What does that tell you? What did we just do? We sold all of the 45,000 we bought, and we sold 1,500 of the beginning inventory. Would you agree with me? So what you could do is you could add together the 14,500 at the beginning plus the 45,000, and that would give you 59,500. And then you could subtract the 46.5, and what would your ending inventory be?
9,160.
Is that what it is? Well, 13,000.
No.
This is the retail. So here's what we've got. I've got 4,500 plus the 45 that I bought. It's 49.5. Less the 46,500 I sold is 13,000. Got it? Does that make sense? My beginning plus my purchases. If you want, you can put a line in here and call it available. Does that make it a little clearer?
Yeah.
14 and 45 is 59,500. And then when I take 59,500 less 46.5, I get the 13. You see it? Either way you want to do it. You could just say, well, look, I bought 45,000, I sold 46.5, I sold 1,500 for the beginning inventory. Does that make sense? And my beginning inventory is 14.5, I sold 1,500 of it, so there's 13.5 left. Which percentage are you going to use? The 74 in the new purchases or the 72 on the old stuff? It's LIFO. That one, right? Take it times 72%, you got it. And that's where they get their 9361. Did you get that?
Okay,
Okay. All that talking I did, and you knew how to do it. But for anybody at home, this one.
Oh, it's 14.
14.5. This one you mean?
Yeah.
14.5 plus 45 is 15. Subtract the 46.5, you got 13 left. Times 72% is 9,360. Okay? Are we good? What's the cost of goods sold? You can say 10,440 beginning plus 33,300. How much is available? Those two added together is how much? 43,740. Right? That's what's available. What's my cost of goods sold? Must be the difference between 43,740 and 93,60, huh? It's got to be.
Okay.
Does it have to be that? You didn't ask for that, but could you do it? Sure. What would that be? 43,740 less 9,360. That's the cost of goods sold. And you always back into the cost of goods sold, right? They don't calculate it first.
It'd be 34,380.
We're brilliant people. Anyway, that was the answer, 9360. And that's how they get gas for it. Therefore, it might say, usually. Did we do everything?
No, we didn't do number 8.
Oh, 8. Oh, 8 we have, I thought it probably gave you dollar value. I did, didn't it? Dollar value of LIFO retail? Yeah, this was the bear. Okay. So what do I know? I know the beginning inventory, I know the purchases, and we calculated it for us. That's nice. That's the net purchases. I assume it's the net sales. Oh, but they still have freight in, markups, markdowns. Oh, so we got to do some work here now. And they have a price index of 110. Okay. So what do you want to do first? Calculate it at what? Year-end values, right? And get your ratio. We're using LIFO, so what do? You separate the beginning inventory, don't you? Right? And we can do it, and by the way, if we have less ending inventory than we do beginning, what do? We use the beginning ratio, don't we? Cost of retail. When do you bring in when do you deflate the inventory? Only in order to calculate what? Our additional layers, right? Okay? And so the cost of retail we can do without that. All right, so here we go. So this is going to be dollar value. And if they ask you a question like this in the CPA exam, you can get mad or you can just celebrate. Because your competition doesn't have a chance and you do. Right? Perfect. They love an idea. And they'll give you some little piece of it, right? So you don't have to figure the whole thing out, like this problem. This is kind of heavy. All right. So what do? We got cost and retail, right? Just like it was not dollar value. No different. Okay? What do we start with? Beginning inventory. So we separate the beginning inventory, right? Because it's LIFO. Okay? So it's 655. This one's 250. What's the cost of retail? Author didn't calculate it, didn't have to. You can increase our inventory. But what is it? What's 155 divided by 250? We have to be the entire code. End of the semester, that's for sure.
62%.
Okay, so it's 62%. Good margin, huh? 38%. 38 cents to keep out of her sales dollar. Okay, then what happens? We have our net purchases. And I guess the net purchases are what? Purchases, less purchase returns allowances, less purchase discounts, right? They just gave us those. 830,800. See, we don't care what the numbers are, you just relax. We don't care what they're making. Their life, they're big. Then what? They're sprayed in, so where does that go? That's only on the cost, right? So you could have added that to the 830,800 before you started, just if you wanted, you can just write it separate, it doesn't matter. But that just increased the total purchase cost, didn't it? Freight is part of the purchase cost. With me? If they show the purchase discounts and purchase returns allowances, we can use those two. They all go together. So now I can get net purchases. Okay? So what else happens? Markups. Did they give them net or?
Net
Markups. It's nice of you to give it to us net. That means they had markups less than cancellations, right? How much is that?
That is 8,000.
And it only affects the sales price, of course. You don't mark up your cost. Nobody's crazy, right? They won't let you mark down your cost. Your vendor's not going to go for that. Okay? And so we got markups and then we have markdowns, don't we? Mm-hmm. And we put them together. The only time that we separate them is when? If we are doing lower of cost or market, right? This is a LIFO method. So we keep them both in there for our cost of retail percentage. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add up everything that's new this year, got it? Just like on the last problem. I'm doing exactly the same as we were on the last problem. We're not using the inflation and all of that. Okay? So what is this added here? Purchase. Acquired. 999.80, is that what it is? No, 840.40. 830,800 plus 14,000, 840,480. And then how much is the sales price of it? 1,318,000 plus 8,000 less 6,000. 1,320,000. Okay, now what will you do? Get a cost of retail receipts, right? On the additions, how much is that? 844,800 divided by 1,320.
64%.
Happy? Whoops. Okay, so any new layer is going to be at 64%. Would you agree with that? Okay, now what will you do? Goods available are going to be what? We can add them together if we want. Add together 155 plus 844,800. We get 999,800. Let's add 250 plus 1,320,000. What do we get? 1,570. Is that what that is? Yeah. All right. Then what do you want to take out? Your sales, right? Less sales, returns and allowances, less sales, sales. So it's net sales. What were their sales? 1,240,000, and of course those are at retail, right? So now what do I know? My ending inventory at retail in year-end dollars. This is all year-end dollars. We have not deflated anything, right? Okay, so what do I have here? 330,000 left at retail. See that? 1,570 less 1,240. Are we good? All you do is you take your inventory available at retail sales price, less your sales. And now we've got, this is ending inventory at retail, isn't it? Retail, but it's year end. So what do I want to do with that thing? Deflate it, right? So let's, instead of year end ending inventory, let's get base year. Got it? Base year ending inventory, right? How would I get there? If it's $330,000 in year-end dollars, and the year-end dollars are what? 110% of the beginning of the year dollars, right? It takes $1.10 to buy what a dollar would have a year ago. That's what that inflation is, right? You know about inflation, right? You go to the store, something costs $1. You go there a few months later, it costs $1.01. A few months later, $1.05. Got the idea? Inflation. Okay? So, but across the whole economy, right? So what are we saying? The base year is 1.0, of course, right? Okay, whoops. The base year is 1.0. I'll write it there. The base year is 1.0. What's the current year? The current year is 1.10 index, right? So those are at dollars that are $1.10 of the base year. The base year is at 1. How do I get it down to the base year? Divide 330 by 1.10. Does that make sense? So what do I have in base year dollars? What does it come down to? 330 divided by 1.1? 300? Yeah. It would have cost me $300,000 at the end of last year to buy what 330 costs now. Got it? Because it went up by 10%. That's it. Okay? All right, so now what do we do? I know the 300 in base dollars, and what did I start with in base dollars? Beginning inventory was how much? 250. So take your 300 and say, okay, how much is from base? Right? 250. You agree with that? So there's 250,000. There's 250,000 from the old layer. Got it? By the way, what's the cost of those? They're at 62%. It's 155,000. I already knew it, didn't I? So the ending inventory for the year is going to be what? 250, which cost me 155,000. That's the old layer. Staying with me? That's sits at 62%. That's that old beginning inventory, huh? Then how much more do I have? I have 50 more, right? Is the new layer. Would you agree with that? Because there's 300 total, right? In base year dollars. There's 250 from the old layer. There's 50 on a new layer in base year dollars, right? But what do I want to do with those? Take them times what to bring them back up to now? You got it. And so what do you have? 55,000. Now that's a retail, right? So it starts making this hard. The new layer at retail is 10% more, right? Gives the inflation than it was in base year dollars. So that new layer is 55,000 at retail. With me? So you got an old one that's 250, a new one that's 55, right? So that 330,000 of year-end dollars is only 300,000 in base year, and it's 305,000 mixed, right? The old layer and the new one. The new one's pretty small. But that 55,000, what index do you want to use? That's the last kicker. This 62% was on the old layer, right? It's 64, isn't it? So take it times 64%. You have got it made. The 55,000. If it's 55,000 ending dollars at retail, right? Right? And it's because I bought them this year. And the cost of retail is 64% this year. What do? You take that 64% times 55, and what is it?
35,200.
And what do you have now for your ending inventory? 155 old layer, right? And 35.2 new layer. And what do they add up in total? That's it. Wow. 190, 200. And believe it or not, that is the answer. That's a tough one. That's really tough. I think a couple people actually got that right. Pretty good. Okay, boy, we beat that quiz today. It's a tough quiz. This is one of the tougher chapters, I think. Just because I was trying to keep all the recon straight, mostly. All right. So you want to do stuff from 7 or 8? Which one first? And we can jump around. We don't have to be long. Either one you missed. Oh, you know what's really good is number 3. We gotta do number 3, I think. What's that?
Which quiz?
On quiz number 8. Chapter. Let's do number 3. These are fun. And really, I bet you can do 4 now after chapter number 4. After doing this in chapter 9, number 4 seems to be index. So we don't have time to more. And number 1 is normal stuff. Yeah, they're not too bad. Actually, number 2 we probably ought to do. Keep seeing this that one. Okay, number 3. Let's do number 3 from quiz chapter 8. Here we go. Indicate the amounts if they're over or understated because of these things, right? Assume a periodic inventory system, right? So they count periodically. Assume all sales and purchases are on credit. So to give you an example, exclude the goods in rented warehouse from inventory, so receivables would be fine, which means sales would be fine. So what would happen if I left them out, right, from inventory and they're included in purchases? I guess I'd be understated on inventory, and cost of goods sold would be overstated, huh? And nothing on accounts payable because I guess they recorded it. Okay, so let's do number 1, okay? Think of the journal that we need to fix. Goods in transit, FOB destination by the supplier. So FOB destination were recorded as a purchase, but were excluded from ending inventory. You know what? I'm glad they left them out of ending inventory. Right? Because they're not ours. It's FOB destination, right? So is the ending inventory okay? Yeah. Is accounts receivable and sales okay? We didn't record a sale. We should not have. Yeah, they're okay. So all we have left is cost of goods sold and accounts payable. They said they recorded it, right? So here's what they did. They debited purchases. How do I know they debited purchases? Because it's periodic. That's what they do when they buy it, right? And they credit accounts payable. All right? So do you think accounts payable is too high? I do. Right? Accounts payable overstated. Right? It just is. Well, then let's think about this. These are hard. We know a lot. So I think the account payable is overstated by whatever that purchase was. Is there anything wrong with inventory? No. It's okay, isn't it? So what must be wrong with equity? It's got to be understated. Equity's got to be understated. Which means net income has to be understated, doesn't it? I mean, they didn't ask for that, but it's true. You with me? Okay. Revenues, there's nothing wrong with revenues. They didn't record the sale. Oh, you know what's got to be wrong with expenses? Overstated. I already know cost of goods sold is the expense that's overstated, and I'm done. Right? I got cost of goods sold overstated, and I've got accounts payable overstated. Right? And that overstatement of cost of goods sold is what caused the net income to be understated, which causes equity to be understated. Right? Remember back in principles and have you do this and your head is swimming? Nothing like now, huh?
Okay, so I wrote no thanks for cost of goods sold on this one, and you said it was right.
No, I screwed up. It's overstated. Oh no, I only marked one wrong on each one and gave you no credit for the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
You passed your grade. It should be no effect, no effect. No effect, no effect, overstated, no effect, overstated. And number one, no effect, overstated, no effect, overstated. Okay? Another way you can do this cost of goods sold here is you could say beginning inventory plus the purchases is available. So that's backed into account. Take away the ending inventory is cost of goods sold, right? What do we know? Beginning inventory is okay. Purchases is overstated by whatever that amount was, right? Available is overstated. Ending inventory is okay. What do you think's wrong with cost of goods sold? Yeah, got it. Either way, you're exactly good. Annoying, but good. Okay. And how many different transactions do I have over time? Unlimited. Number two of it. Goods held in consignment were included in the inventory count recorded as a purchase. Let's do the same thing. Assets, liabilities plus equity. Revenues less expenses. Income. One of these expenses is cost of goods sold. And if you can't figure it out, this always works. Look excited about this. This is clever stuff. Okay. You can do it too. Don't give up. Anybody else too. Don't give up. Okay, that's cost of goods sold. Right number no. What they do, it says goods held in consignment were included in inventory. What do you think about that? Should they have been included in inventory? And they said they also recorded as a purchase. So should it have been included in the inventory? Held on consignment. Our vendor sent them to us, but we haven't bought them yet. We're not going to buy them until we sell them. Consignment. It's consigned in, right? What's consigned out? Consigned out is I take my inventory and put it out in the store, right? Okay, so when you go to a Hallmark, it's full of all kinds of stuff, right? The store owner owns all, or not almost none of it, but lots and lots of it they don't, right? All those gifts and stuff they don't. All the artistic stuff they don't. They own the cars. Okay, so here's the deal. They call that consigned in. Whose inventory is it? The person that is selling it to them, because it's not sold until Hallmark sells it, right? The purchase and the sale happen instantaneously. That's consigned inventory. So for them, it's inventory consigned out, so it's their inventory, right? What about Hallmark? It's not their inventory. So what they're saying here is, look, goods held in consignment were included in the inventory count. Should they have? No. So is there inventory overstated? Yes. Ah, so inventory is overstated. So I've already got an answer for that one. Inventory is overstated, okay? And then they said, but they recorded them as a purchase. So what they did was they debited purchases and they credited accounts payable. Well, what does that tell you? They shouldn't have, right? So purchases are overstated, right? And accounts payable are overstated. Wow. Right? Which makes me think that equity's fine, by the way. Which makes me think that net income is okay, by the way. Right? Gotta be. Okay? Because these sides equal each other, of course, right? Okay. And then think about the sale. Did they say anything about a sale? No. So what do you think about accounts receivable? So inventory is overstated. What about accounts receivable, another asset? There's nothing wrong. So that would be no effect, right? What about sales revenue? No effect. So now look at this. If there's nothing wrong with sales revenue, and there's nothing wrong with net income, what's wrong with expenses? Nothing. There must be no error. How could that happen? The beginning inventory is right. Am I correct about that? They didn't say anything. If you overstate your purchases, what happens to available? They're overstated, aren't they? But ending inventory was what? Overstated by the same amount. So let's say it was $100,000. You got $100,000 too much purchases, $100,000 too much available, and then you subtract $100,000 too much in ending inventory. What happens to cost of goods sold? Nothing. And that's why the expenses are fine. Wow. So the answers were accounts receivable no effect, and sales no effect, of course, right? Inventory overstated, accounts payable overstated, cost of goods sold, no. Got it? N-E-O-O-N-E, N-E. Easy, huh? Kinda. Do enough of these to get easy. And with all throughout your career, you figure stuff out and screw that thing. So it's a really good exercise. Goods in transit shipped FOB shipping point were not recorded as a sale and were included in ending inventory. Should this have been a sale? I am shipping them, right? FOB shipping point. As soon as I shipped them, what should I have done? I should take it out of inventory, and they included in inventory, so the inventory is too high, right? And I should have recorded the sale, right? So let's think about this. Should they have debited accounts receivable for that amount? Yes. Should they have credited sales for that amount? Yes. They didn't, did they? So let's just do that part. Assets equal liabilities plus equity. Revenues less expenses. It's net income. True? And if you doing inventory, you know it's by the cost of goods sold, so you could just set this right up. If it's not inventory, it's easier. It's just depreciation expense or something. You shouldn't have a beginning and ending. But that's okay. We can do it anyway. And this will work every single time. Okay? And I know you know this stuff. All right, so if we didn't do this, and we should, what do we think? Accounts receivable are what? Understated. Sales are what? Understated. Revenues. We're good, aren't we? Right? What does that do to equity, by the way? Understated to that extent, right? It's true. Okay? So this one would be understated by the sales price, right? For the sales. Okay? Then it says they were included in ending inventory. Now, their purchases are okay, right?
Yeah.
Their accounts payable is okay, I think. Don't you think accounts payable is fine?
Yeah.
Their purchases are fine. Was their beginning inventory okay? Yeah. Were their purchases okay? Yeah. Available therefore okay? Yeah. Ending inventory? Too high. It's overstated, which makes cost of goods sold too low, understated. Got it? Now, one more thing. Inventory. We said it was what? Overstated. So let's put that here. Now you got to sit and think for a second. What is that overstatement of inventory did what to expenses? Understated expenses, which would do what? Overstate, right? That would overstate net income. And this one would understate net income. This one would overstate net income for the cost of goods sold, right? They're going opposite directions, aren't they? Which would be bigger, the revenues or the expenses? A bigger number. You could arbitrarily make up a number. I sold them for $100,000. And the cost of them was 80, right? I understate by 100 here, and I understate by 80 here. Don't you think the cost will always be less than the sales price? Unless you really screw up big time. So I have the 20 changed to net income, understated, right? The overstatement in net income for cost of goods sold would be smaller. In my little example, I'd be 80, right? Just so we had a number to look at. Got it? So my understatement 100, my overstatement 80, what would it net be? Understated by whatever the difference is, right? And the way you could think about that, so that'd be a 20 understatement. You could say, well, the account receivable is understated by 100, right? Inventory is overstated by 80. What's the difference? 20. Yeah, understatement, overstatement. Yeah, I'm understated by 20, which equals the understatement on the other side. So you could attach some numbers if you wanted. But all you have to know is revenues exceed expenses, of course, right? So what are our answers? Accounts receivable, understated. Did that, right? Sales, understated. We did that, didn't we? Right? You got that one? Inventory, overstated. They just gave us that one, didn't they? Accounts payable, no problem, right? What do we have left? Cost of goods sold must have been understated. Because if the inventory is overstated, cost of goods sold are understated. Okay? They're kind of the same problem with a little twist. Let's try number 4. Okay. Goods were shipped and appropriately excluded from ending inventory, but the sale was not recorded. We shipped them. They took the inventory out. All they didn't do was record a sale, right? Not much anything here. The other ones were hard. This one was easy. Would my cost of goods sold be right? Yes. Would my inventory be right? Yes. Right? Would my income be right? No. Why not? You didn't record the sale. What would the sale be? Debit?
Purchases.
Sale?
Oh,
Tire? Accounts receivable, right? And credit what? Sales. There you go. All right. So what's wrong? Nothing with cost of goods sold or inventory, right? So inventory and cost of goods sold are nowhere, right? What about accounts payable? There's nothing wrong with accounts payable. No error, right? So what is wrong? No error to everything except for what? Nothing wrong with expenses, nothing wrong with liabilities, nothing wrong with inventory. What are we missing? I don't have the account receivable. Accounts receivable is what? Understated, you should debit it, right? Which means equity must be what? Understated by exactly the same amount. Would you agree with that? Nothing wrong with liabilities. Revenues are understated by that amount, which is what causes net income to be understated by that amount, which causes that one. And all you had to do here was say understated for receivables and sales. On a problem like this, I could throw in net income if I wanted, couldn't I? Do it. Awesome. Okay. Let's do 2 though. And then we'll try the other twist for a while. See where we're at. I don't care if it's time we do more. Move around a bit. Get tired. Maybe it's just the reflection of me.
No, I'm just exhausted.
Me too. Oh. We are taking a short break, you guys. At home. Work on something. I like opening and deleting. Okay. All right. So we're going to do number 2 on quiz chapter 8. Here we go. Dot's company sells TVs. Perpetual inventory, so it's perpetuals. Every time they buy something, they debit inventory. When they sell something, they credit inventory and debit cost of goods sold, right? So they used to be purchased accounting fee. We still can. At the close of the year, a new approach for compiling inventory was used, and apparently a satisfactory cutoff for the statements was not made. Some events that occurred were as follows. Okay, so they've got an inventory of 33,500 on the books. There's a whole bunch of things going on here, and they want to confuse the correct image inventory. If I were you guys, I would say inventory. Okay. 33.5? That's wrong. But that's what's in the general ledger, right? Okay, I guess it's wrong. So let's see what affects inventory. That's all we got to do. So if you think about the terminal use of the year, your debit inventory decreases, your credit inventory decreases. 5,000 were included December 31st, they shipped to January 2nd. The sale was recorded in 2015. What they did was they debited accounts receivable and credited sales, didn't they? Are accounts receivable too high? Yes. Are sales too high? Yes. Does that have anything to do with inventory? No. What's wrong with inventory? They didn't sell it yet, and they kept it in inventory. Do nothing. TVs costing $12,000 received in 2015, but recorded received in. I think you better have an inventory for 12,000, just like that. Right? Don't you have 12,000 more at December 31st? So what they did was they understated their assets inventory, and they understated their accounts payable too, didn't they? Right? In their balance sheet. True? Okay. Number 3. Inventory costing $4,600 reported twice in the inventory account, right? Which means they reduced cost of goods sold. They debited inventory and credited cost of goods sold, didn't they? Or I'm sorry, yeah, twice. They debited inventory and credited cost of goods sold. What do they need to do to fix it? Debit cost of goods sold and credit inventory, right? Take it out. Put it in there twice. Take it out. Make sense? Easy. Each one's easy. You just relax and do it right. TV shipped to a customer December 28, 2015. FOB shipping point, which cost $8,000, were not received by the customer until January. TVs were included in the ending inventory. It was shipped FOB destination. They didn't record it, right? Oh, should they take it out of inventory? Sure they should. They should debit cost of goods sold and credit inventory, shouldn't they? For the 8,000, am I right? They shipped them FOB shipping point in December. What else should they do? For the sales price of it, which probably is more than 8,000. Let's hope so. What would you do? Debit accounts receivable and credit sales. So, you know, on this transaction, going back to the other problem we were just working on this transaction, look at all the things that are wrong. Let's say it was a $10,000. Oh, by the way, add those up first. What do we get? 835. Nice for this up. What did I get? 39, 30, 33 foot. 33.5.
32,900.
We put it twice, 4,600. Take it out. We're doing inventory, right? 33.5.
Should be 9,200.
The author says 39,000. I said 39,000. 33.5, beginning, right? TV shipped for 5,000 were included in inventory. But they should be, so we do nothing with that, right? 12,000 were recorded as received in January, but we should have recorded them this year. So those two look good. TVs, oh, there's another one. TVs on hand is 6,100. I didn't do number 5. I apologize. TVs on hand that cost 6,100 were never recorded in the book. So what should they do? Debit inventory for 6,100, right? Got to have that one too. Debit inventory for 6,100. Okay, I got it. There you go. Okay, come on, keep it finish the problem. Okay, so there's your corrected inventory. Pretty easy, right? But let's do number 4. I got carried away there. Let's do number 4, and let's assume the sales price was 12,000. What are they missing? Do that for me. Number 4. Tell me what is wrong with assets, liabilities, equity, and which asset, liability, equity accounts? Revenues, expense, net income. tell me that transaction, number 4, what happens? Go ahead and do it. What's wrong with these accounts? Can you do it?
So it's 12,000, you said?
Yeah, let's say the sale was 12,000 and it cost 8,000. And it should have been recorded in December and was not, right? So what would you do to fix it? Let's fix the sale. Debit what? Sold it on account. Debit what?
Accounts, payable,
Receivable.
receivable. I'm tired.
12,000. And credit? I sold it.
Sales.
Sales. Yeah, sales revenue. Okay. So that would increase my accounts receivable. So right now it's understated, right? By 12,000. And it would increase my what? Revenues by 12,000, which would increase my net income by 12,000, which increased my equity by what? 12,000. With me? So that 12,000 would flow all the way through there. Okay, and then on the rest of it, what would it be? I kept them in inventory. I shouldn't have, right? What should I have done? Debit cost of goods sold and credit inventory, right? Okay. So what would happen here? Be 8,000, wouldn't it? And what's that going to be? Oh, I have more expense by 8,000. I have less inventory by 8,000, right? If I make these adjustments. That increase in expense is going to reduce my net income, which is going to reduce my equity by the 8,000, right? The net effect is 4,000, which is my increase in net income. If you increase revenues by 12 and increase expenses by 8, you have an increase in income of 4. That increase in income is this 4 right here. You see it? Okay, so I have an increase in assets of 4,000. Nothing's wrong with liabilities, and I'd have an increase in equity of 4,000. Everything ties out beautifully, doesn't it? It's caused by that income. Now, what would happen on the cost of goods sold schedule? Beginning inventory would have been fine. Purchases would have been fine. Available would have been fine. What have they done? They have too much in ending inventory, don't they? So they would reduce this by 8,000, which does what? The cost of goods sold. It's the journal entry. They have a cost of goods sold credit inventory, doesn't it? Folks at home, pay attention to this one. Okay? You got it? 39,000. What was hard on the other quiz? Yeah, 7. Okay. I have a baseball. It's just a script. And tomorrow is the real game.
Okay.
Yeah. Exciting.
Made your grandpa shirt yet?
The grandpa shirt for
Yeah.
baseball.
World's best grandpa.
Oh, I do have that. Yeah.
Proud of number, grandpa number, whatever his number
Grandpa
is.
number. I do have one that is I'm awesome or something. Best grandpa ever. I've got a couple of those actually. Kids have got wow. We've got those videos. So what was hard on this? What'd you miss?
I don't even remember how the document said. You can do 4.
Number 4 maybe. Oh yeah. Do that. Do number 4. So we're on quiz chapter 7, number 4. Start with that one. Extra factor. Okay, so factor means what? I sold it. What does the sign mean? About a night. Right? And they're collateral, but it's more than collateral because when I collect the money, I have to give it back, right? That's the difference. So on number 3, it was a sign. On number 4, it's factor. Just sold them. Then what do you need to know? With or without recourse, right? With recourse, they can come back after me, so I have a recourse liability. Without recourse, they can't come back after me, so I don't have a recourse liability. That's it. Okay? So $1,002,000. I sold them all, right? What do I immediately know I'm going to do? They want the journal entry on Dexter's books. They are factoring the receivables. What did they give up? Receivables, right? So part A is going to be credit accounts receivable for the full amount. So sure, do that. These are all even thousands. Okay, 1,200,000. What am I going to get? Some amount of cash. What's going to happen? I bet they're going to hold some back and they're going to owe it to me, right? Due from factor. They're going to owe it to me. They're not giving me all of it. And then what else is there going to be? They're going to charge me to do this. They're taking a cut, aren't they? What do I call that, seeing as I sold the receivables? It's not interest expense. What is it? Loss on factoring. And all I got to do is calculate those. I'm not kidding. That's it, okay? So what are the percentages? It says, Quick is assigned a finance charge of 6%. That's the loss, isn't it? What's 6% of 1,200,000? 6% times that number. 1,200,000 times 6% is my loss on factoring. That's what they charged me to factor. 72,000. All right. That's the loss. I lost what they charged me, right? I got less than that. Then how much did they hold back? 2%. 1,200,000 times 2% is what's that? 24,000. Right? They're holding back 24,000. So what's going to happen is they're going to pay me the 1,200,000 of my receivables, right? Less the 72,000 fee. Make sense? Less, so take that away. Less what? 24,000. What's that going to be called? Retained. That's going to be due from factor, right? Okay, so how much cash did they give me? 1,104. Got it. So everybody was swimming on this when you did this thing. It just went crazy. But there's no reason for it, is there? This is what I mean by it's cumulative. You get your head around it. And, oh, okay, big deal. Right? That's no problem. B, prepare the entry on the other side. Well, guess what? They get the receivable. Guess what? They pay out $1,104. Guess what? They owe the company $24. Guess what? They earned $72. 72,000. It's just the reverse of it, isn't it? Okay? So what would it look like? Debit accounts receivable. How much? 1,200,000. Don't you think? What else do we have? They gave up cash. How much?
1,104.
Yeah. Okay, and then what?
Is it due to?
Yeah. So this is an account receivable. This is an account payable. We don't call it that, okay? Due from is a receivable. Due to is a liability, right? Due to the company, whoever they are, Dexter, I think, 24,000. And then the loss is what to them? Factoring revenue, either factor revenue or financing revenue, if you want to call it that. I don't think they provided financing, so call it that if you want. God does. Okay, got it? Do you see that this is just reversed on the other side of the deal? Of course. So once you got one, you got a maid, don't you? C says assume instead is with recourse, and the recourse provision has a fair value of 21,000. I want to ask you this: what would be the entry on the factor's books, seeing as they don't know about that estimate of 21,000? If they did, they'd give you 21,000 less for those receivables. You don't tell them, right? How this works. This entry would not change. Okay? All we're going to change is on the company's books, because the company knows about that estimate of 21,000. And sometimes they'll do the estimate, they just give it to you. Other times they'll say a percentage of the receivables. Who cares, right? What is that thing? That's a recourse liability, isn't it, of 21? So look how little changes here in C. How much cash are they going to give you? Exactly the same amount, right? Because all they know about is this here, right? So they're still going to give you cash of 1,104. remember, both of these are on Dexter's books, right, guys? Guys, Apple. Okay, right? Got it? Okay, 1104. They're still getting rid of the account receivable, aren't they? Do they still have a due from the factor? Sure. Well, then what's different? Nothing's changed yet. Oh, the loss on factoring is going to be more. By how much? By 21,000. Why? Because we think we have a recourse liability of 21,000. So guess what happens? My loss isn't just the 72 fee they're charging me. I think I'm going to lose 21 more for the recourse liability. Make sense? Because I think they're never going to collect that much. So what's 72 plus 21? 93,000. I can't believe it. That's the whole thing. You're done. Boy, that was an easy problem. Everybody tried this. They were quite successful at it, actually. It's easy, isn't it? It's just not a big deal. It's not a big deal. We're going to have to do the receivable one, too. Let's do the assignment first, then we'll do the receivable. We'll get it both. I can't believe you guys still screw up the receivables. Stop it. The allowance for doubtful accounts. Number 2. I just can't believe it. We'll get it this time. We will get it this time. It's not just this class, it happens all the time. Wow. And then later when you're a senior, you'll think, how could I possibly learn this stuff? Okay, let's do number 3. Accounts receivable amount of 500 were assigned. Does that mean that they took the whole 500? No, that's collateral, right? They're collateral. It just means that when you collect any of that 500,000, you have to pay it to whoever you borrowed the money from, right? This is borrowing money. It even says it's security for a loan of 400,000, right? And then they're going to charge you 4% up front, which is really more interest. They call it finance charge. I think it's interest, right? But we pay it up front, points on it. Okay, so they're going to get 4%. So what's that? 4% of what? It says it's charged on the face of the loan, so that'd be 4% times 400,000 or 16,000. True? Okay. What if they said it was based on the amount of the assigned receivables? Well, then it'd be 20,000. Could they do that? Sure, you can have any agreement you want, but it says it's on the loan. It doesn't. So what are we going to have? We want to know. This is on Marsh Company, the ones that are borrowing the money, right? How much note payable do they have? In the first one there. 400,000, right? Yeah. And we said that they charged us a fee based on the 400,000, it's based on the loan, of 4%. And how much is that? 16,000. So what are they going to do? They're going to give me the difference, aren't they? 384,000. Staying with me? Cash. 384,000. What's the 16,000? Interest expense. They called it finance charge, which is an expense too. Okay? I like interest expense too. Then they collect 260 of the receivables, and they are going to send that money across, right? As soon as they get it. Because the first 400,000 that they collect of this money, they are going to send it, right, to whoever they borrowed the money from. Okay? You got the idea? Fast finance. Plus, they're going to send them interest. Okay? So they're going to get both. So they're going to receive cash and give up accounts receivable of 260,000. Got it? They're not going to pay them everything they owe them. They're just going to pay them that. Okay? And also, they're going to give them 9% interest. 9% of what? How much do they borrow? 400,000. So what would it be for a full year at 400,000? Times 9% is what? $36,000. But how much time went by? 1 month times 112. Got it? 3,000 divided by 12. $3,000. That's going to be their interest, huh? So they're not going to just give them the 260,000. What are they going to give them? 263,000. Okay? So they're gonna credit cash now for 263. So they're giving up the 260 they collected, plus 3,000 of their own money, I guess, right? What are they gonna debit? Note payable. How much note payable did they just pay off? Only 260, the rest was interest, right? And the 3,000 is what? Interest expense. So their interest expense so far on this loan is 16 plus 3. Got it? Okay, what if they said they were going to use an account named assigned receivables? What would change? What you would add, if they're going to use an account, assigned accounts receivable, is when they give me the cash, right, this first entry up here, when they do that entry, I would also debit assigned accounts receivable for the whole 400,000, got it? And then I'd credit accounts receivable for the whole 400,000. That makes sense? That's credit. Okay? Then when they pay me, I would debit cash, 260, right? And I would credit assigned accounts receivable because I put it in there. I'll have to take it out of there. So big deal. That'd be for the 260 also. And now I'd still have a balance of 140 in assigned accounts receivable, right? Good. This entry, so that would change this part of this entry, and then it would add this stuff to it. Okay? So, and then this one would be the same, of course, right? Debit notes payable, debit interest expense, credit cash. So that was the answer, but let's add a little bit. Let's say now they collect, let's say that they collect 200,000 of the receivables. So now they have collected 460,000 of the 500,000 of receivables. What would they do? If they didn't have assigned accounts receivable, what did they do? Debit cash, what did I say, 200,000? And credit accounts receivable, 200,000? And let's say it was one more month. Tell me what they would give to finance company. What do you owe finance company now? Note payable was how much when we started? 400,000. And what did we pay against it? So we bought it 400. We paid 260,000, didn't we? So what's left? 140,000. With me? So how much do I owe them? 140,000, right? What's my interest rate? 9%. And I said one more month, didn't I? So take 9% times 140 and divide that by 12. That'd be the interest now, right? In the new year. How much is that going to be?
$10.50.
10,000, 1050?
Yeah.
1,000. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, 1,050. It's less than it was last time when it was 3,000 because we owed them less, right? Okay, so what will we do then? We will write them a check, won't we? And we'll get rid of the note payable. How much do I owe them? 140,000. So now I've gotten rid of the whole note payable between the 260 and the 140. How much interest expense do I think I have? I'm going to pay them the 140 plus the interest, aren't I? Interest expense I think is 1,050. And how much cash am I going to give up? 141,050. What am I going to have left in accounts receivable now? I started with 500. Think about the receivable. Let's do accounts receivable. I started with 500,000, didn't I? Right? Then how much did we collect? 260. Then how much more did we collect? 200. What's going to be left in there, of course? 40,000. And that money's ours, right? When we collect it, we get to keep it because we paid back the whole loan, didn't we? We good? What if I had the assigned accounts receivable? What would happen? This would still be cash for 200, right? But it'd be assigned accounts receivable now. Don't you think? Because that's what we have it, 200,000. Okay. So then what happens? What do I have left in assigned accounts receivable now, by the way? I put into assigned accounts receivable at the beginning. Oh, I screwed it up. I didn't put 400 in at the beginning. I put 500 in at the beginning because that's how much I assigned, right? I messed all that up. We would have put the whole 500 in assigned, wouldn't we? Because we can't, that doesn't belong to us. It it does, but it's collateral for the loan. So I'd have the whole thing in there. So if I put the 500 in, what would have happened to assigned accounts receivable? Let's figure this out. It's kind of fun. Drive you crazy. Assigned accounts receivable. I put 500 in, right? And then what happened? I collected 260, right? That's this one. Whoops, that's this one. Collected 260, and then I collected 200. So I had 260 come out. I had 200 come out, just like regular receivables. But what I wanted to show you is we've got 40,000 left in here, don't we? See that? What would you have to do? We'd make exactly the same journal entry as this one, right? The payments would be the same. But there's one more thing I'd have to do. I have 40,000 left in assigned accounts receivable, don't I? Do they need to be assigned anymore if I paid off the debt? No. So how do I get rid of it? I credit assigned accounts receivable for that 40,000, and it goes away. See that? That makes it 0. Okay? And what do I debit? Accounts receivable. So those end up back in accounts receivable. And you know what? Both sides give me exactly the same result, whether I do assignment or not. Use the assignment account. Okay? That was fun, huh? Do one more. All right, one more time. Let's do problem 2 on quiz 7. Get this right this time. All of you, please. These are free points. What do I know? It says accounts receivable has a balance of 120,000. How'd that get there? When they sold stuff to customers, they debited accounts receivable and credited sales, right? When they collected cash, they debited cash and credited accounts receivable. That's how much they have not collected from their customers. Would you agree with that? What account goes on a balance sheet with that? Allowance for doubtful accounts, right? And the allowance for doubtful accounts says it has a 730 balance in it. How did that get there? They debited bad debt expense and they credited the allowance, didn't they? Then when they wrote off the accounts, they debited the allowance and credited accounts receivable, didn't they? They might have even reinstated some, but okay, fine. But anyway, so what's the net realizable receivable right now, I suppose? 120 less 730, that's probably not the right number because we haven't done the adjusting journal entry yet, right? Okay, so we need the adjusting journal entry to replenish the account. We've got sales. Now these are on the income statement. You agree with that, right? Receivables and allowance are on the balance sheet. The allowance is the portion of the receivables you expect never to collect, right? That's what it is. Contra receivables account. Sales, what does it have in it? 510,000. How'd that get there? Oh, I don't know. They debited cash in sales. They debited accounts receivable in sales. Maybe they debited unearned revenue and credited sales, right? You add it up, you got sales. What they say in this problem is all of these were credit sales, so they're all on account, right? All debit accounts receivable credit sales. What account represents the portion of those they're never going to collect on the income statement? Because sales goes on the income statement. Bad debt expense. Right now, it'd probably be 0 if we had not replenished the account. They didn't give us the balance, so. Oh, but we got sales returns and allowances, and they're going to do it based on net sales, are they? Yeah. So I have another account, sales returns and allowances. How much in it? 8,000. So what's my net sales? 502, right? That'd be amazing. Okay, good. We're good. So we got the whole picture done. Bad debt expense represents a portion of the sales you're never going to collect. Goes in the income statement. Allowance for doubtful accounts represents the portion of receivables you're never going to collect. Right? Goes on the balance sheet. Okay. In the first example, it says you're going to estimate 5% of gross receivables. Gross, 120,000. What's 5% times 120,000?
What percent of what?
120,000. That's times 120. What do I want to be 6,000? The allowance, right? How are you going to make your allowance get to be 6,000 if it's only 730? I mean, you're going to add the difference to it. 5,270. So I know what I want to do for part A, part one, I guess, is debit bad debt expense for the increase I have to put into the allowance, right? Because there's already a balance there. I'm going to just increase it to where I want it to be. So I'm going to credit allowance for doubtful accounts. Got it? Okay. The second one, what are we going to do? It says, whole different thing. 1% of net sales. What's net sales? 502,000. What's 1% of that? 5020, right? What do I want to be 5020? What goes on? Does everybody see the 502? Every one of you? Do you see where I got the 502? It's the sales less the sales returns and allowances, because it says net sales, right? If it was on all sales, it'd be 510. That's 1%. So anyway, where did I get the 5,020? I took 1% times 502,000, didn't I? What account do I want to be 5,020? Bad debt expense. What does that represent? It's the portion of the sales you expect never to collect. That's what we just estimated. Right now, the account has nothing in it. How are you going to make it be 5,020? Debited for 5,020, right? And credit what? Allowance for down. Ta-da. I'm good. Those are all the answers. You guys, some of you got half of it right, some of you got the other half right. What? Go one way right, the other way wrong. So fix that, fix that, fix that. Steady, steady, steady. I have no idea what's on the test, but it's not good.
Can you talk about the answers for number one in this chapter?
Oh, sure. One is A, or 25,200.
25,200.
Yeah. You put the multiple choice, I should think of something else. Let's see, and then what else did you do? Did you do that rest of that quiz?
Yeah.
You're on the floor. Okay, on quiz number 8, chapter 8, I didn't give you the answers to 1 today. No. A is 6,051. 6050. 6051. 6,051. B is 3,279. Number 2 was 39,000. We did that. Oh, number 4, I didn't give the answers to that. 2013 is 364,500.
Wait, what?
Number 4.
Okay.
2013 is 364,500. 2014 is 502,500. And 2015 is 479,500. Got it. Bye, everybody.